Check it out, everybody. It's the new 2022 Honda Passport Trailsport. Now, the Passport has been with us, at least this version of the Passport, has been with us since the 2019 model year. There were Honda Passports of old. They were very, very different vehicles. Let's not talk about those. Anyway, this nameplate is back, and for 2022, the Passport has gotten an update, and that includes a brand new trim, this Trailsport you see here. Now, this is one of two Trailsport trimmed vehicles, this and the Honda Pilot. The Honda Pilot is the bigger of the two, as it is a 3-row SUV, not a 2-row, but to be honest with you, the two vehicles actually have a lot in common. And for 2022, there are 3 Passport trims, the EXL, this Trailsport, and the Elite. And that makes this Trailsport the middle of the 3 trims. And that also means that most Honda Passports will in fact be all-wheel drive. The Trailsport and the Elite are only available in all-wheel drive, but the now base trim EXL is available in both front and all-wheel drive configurations, and that is because, yes, this is fundamentally a front-wheel drive layout. You've got a transversely mounted engine, not a longitudinally mounted engine, and that lends itself to front-wheel drive configurations. Considering all that, the base price for the Honda Passport for 2022 is now $39,095. The base price for this Honda Passport Trailsport is $43,695, and my test car cost $44,090. And with that, I think this is a good time to show you around and inside the car. Hi everybody, welcome to a very blustery and windy Michigan spring day, and let's take a look at this refreshed 2022 Honda Passport Trailsport with all-wheel drive. This particular car is painted in Sonic Gray Pearl, which is a $395 optional paint and a new paint for 2022 on the Passport. As I said, the Trailsport is new for 2022. It's a new trim, and there are several cues to show you that it is a Trailsport. Of course, we've got Trailsport badges here and here. Also, we have all-wheel drive and Passport logos in black instead of chrome. The front grille and front bumper is unique for the Trailsport, as is this part of the rear bumper right here, and these new larger tailpipes here and here. Looking at the front, all Passports were refreshed for 2022 from the A-pillar forward, and they kind of just generally speaking went with a more squared off, more rugged, more straight up and down kind of grille. And I think it looks just fine. This is a very wide car, 78.6 inches wide, and you got like this nice squat stance as a result. And I think they did a good job with these headlights here, and I do like these fog lights down here as well. And you can see there's a small air channel right here, and that passes on to the front of the fender right here, and that creates what's called a front air curtain, which kind of creates like a sheet of air to block entry into the front fender and create a high pressure zone and more drag. Looking at the car in profile, you definitely get a classic 2-box SUV shape. Let me put up the specs right now so you can see what the dimensions of this thing are. As I said, it's a pretty wide car. One unique thing about the Trailsport, the front and rear tracked. So not the actual width of the car, but the center line of the wheels on either side itself is 10 millimeters wider on the front and rear axle. If you want to see all the specs of this car, including the powertrain, fuel economy, and that kind of stuff, I've got that in the description. You can check it out there. But there are a couple of interesting cues to point out. You, first of all, do get 18-inch wheels instead of the 20s that are on the EXL and Elite Passport models, and that is painted in pewter. You also get this interesting combination of colors. You get a gloss black side view mirror cap, but a matte black side view mirror base right here. You also get this black window trim right here, and this gloss black roof rail as well. As we come towards the back, you can see this roof mounted spoiler right there for all that needed downforce. But on a serious note, I do dig the shark fin antenna in back. And looking in back, it's pretty much a standard Passport back here. Let's take a look inside the car. This is actually really incredible to see, because as you open up, this is a 2-row SUV that offers 50 cubic feet of storage space behind the second row, and that includes a couple of cubby holders here and a deeper one here. And then also, if you pull on this, you have some underfloor storage right there, and that's a pretty darn decent size, and this hard plastic so easy to clean as well. And beyond that, underneath the floor here is your spare tire. It's a space saver spare. And you have a power outlet right here. Now, if 50 cubic feet of storage space, which is a lot, isn't enough, it's just a couple presses of a button. And now you have 101 cubic feet of storage behind the front row of your 2022 Honda Passport. That's a big, big number and gives you a lot of options of storage space. And it's really wide too. I mean, look at that expanse. Anyway, let's take a look at the back seat. Again, a nice and wide car means that you're going to have plenty of width for passengers inside. You also get these rubberized floor mats down here, thanks to the Trail Edition. We've got pretty darn high seat bottoms, so I've got right around a 90-degree bend in my knee and decent thigh support. Lots and lots of leg room right here, and plenty of headroom as well, probably a couple inches of headroom, and I am 5 foot 11 inches tall, or 181 centimeters. A couple of nice touches, 2 cup holders for each outside passenger, a sunshade, which is nice, and some charge ports as well, a couple of USBs, 2.5 amps, and look at that, AC power. And finally, if you don't have 3 passengers, you do get more cup holders and a place to rest your arms as well. Also, I mean, really, this is wide enough for 3 passengers and plenty wide for 2 passengers. All right, let's check out the front. Remote start is actually standard on Honda Pilots, so one thing you'll notice about the Trailsport right away is that you've got this orange contrast stitching on the door and on the seats right here. Here is the Trailsport logo on the all rubberized floor mats, and it's also embroidered into the seat headrest right here. You do get power windows with auto up down in front, power locks, tailgate and fuel door open right here. You do have 2 position seat memory right there. Seat adjustments are your typical 4 aft, up, down, seat back adjustment, and nice enough, lumbar support as well. You do get tilt and telescope steering. It is right here, manually adjusted, and a lot of different options for stability control and other systems right here. Here is your side view mirror adjust, and also you can fold them right here. And there is also an econ mode over here as well. Now that we're inside, it's easy to see that the door itself also provides a lot of pockets for stuff right here, and another one down below as well. It's a hard plastic, so easy enough to put dirty things in there and not worry about it gumming up the car too badly. The instrument cluster has 2 real gauges on either side, fuel gauge over here, temperature gauge over here, and then you have a screen in the center with this kind of like linear path tachometer and speed right there, and currently have it set for trip as well. Here's the engine start stop if you're not using the remote starter. The steering wheel itself also has the orange contrast stitching right there. You also have paddle shifters, upshift, downshift for the 9-speed automatic transmission. Lots of different buttons here to play with the settings on the center console screen, and your adaptive cruise control right there. The center console touchscreen is an 8-inch display audio screen right here, and it's easy enough to read and see. This 8-inch display audio touchscreen does have standard Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but it is wired. You get dual zone climate control and some other settings right here, and standard on all Passports are heated seats and a wireless smartphone charge pad right here. You also have another port right there and general power right there. And this port is for your Apple CarPlay Android Auto. If this were an Elite trim, we would have heated and ventilated seats and a heated steering wheel as well. And the rear seats, aside from the middle seat, would be heated as well. Beneath all that, we've got Honda's now ubiquitous push button Prindle, and down here, this is the button for drive modes, and your auto engine start stop button is right here. 2 more cup holders that are nice and deep, and more storage. When we pull this back, you've got this little tray right here, and looking deep down, you have more charging options right there. Looking up, here's how you adjust your moonroof, and you get a sunglass holder as well, and the privacy panel for the moonroof is manual. Okay, drive modes. You get 4 drive modes, unless you include Eco, which is this button over here, and that's actually a 5th drive mode. But right here, you get normal, snow, mud, and sand. And these are powertrain adjustments, but it also affects the VTM4 system, which is the torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, and how torque is distributed and how aggressively so, and those types of things. So those drive modes would have a real impact on how you would get through these different surfaces. And speaking of drive modes, let's get back to the drive. All right, time to dig into the powertrain. The one and only powertrain for the Honda Passport is a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 that makes 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. That is tied to a 9-speed automatic transmission. That's your only choice, and it's not a bad choice. Good thing. And it's not a bad choice because it's a smooth operating engine, and that's despite the fact that it's kind of old school by today's standards. We have a single overhead cam, not a double overhead cam, and we don't have any hybrid anything to talk about. It does have auto stop start for the engine, but that's not really the same thing, right? But because it's simple and naturally aspirated, we actually get pretty darn decent amount of rev. This has a 6,900 RPM redline, which is higher than a lot of turbo engines these days, and it makes its peak power at 6,000 RPM, which is a nice stout number. You don't have this like weird grunty kind of thing. Now, torque is a little bit on the high side for its peak, 4,700 RPM, but the build up to power is nice and linear. Everything's nice and smooth and easy to dial in, so that part is really good. Plus, the 9-speed automatic transmission operates smoothly. You get quick shifts when you need them, and you do have a regular drive or sport mode for the transmission to give you that option as well, which is nice. But in terms of powertrain, that is the least interesting part of this thing, because the 4-wheel drive system is called iVTM4. And iVTM4 is super handling all-wheel drive from Acura. It's the same system with a different name. It just sounds more technical with the nomenclature that they've used for Honda, but it is super handling all-wheel drive just like you see in Acura. And what does that mean? That means that despite this being an inherently front-wheel drive layout, you can send up to 70% of the torque to the rear axle, and among that 70% of the rear torque, 100% of it can go to either the left or the right side based on what the powertrain computer thinks is the best thing to do. So that gives this car a lot of options, both dynamically and where to send power for the best traction. And it's a nice, useful system. I've driven it several times in Acuras, and it always works well there. And because this is the same system, it works here just as well. By today's standards, fuel economy is a bit on the low side in this size of SUV, but it's certainly not bad. You get 19 miles to the gallon in the city, 24 on the highway, and 21 combined. Now, if you get an EXL with a front-wheel drive, you get 20 miles to the gallon in the city, 25 miles to the gallon on the highway, and 22 combined. Slightly better. So with that information about the powertrain, I'm always curious to see what it means in terms of rear-world acceleration. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a quick acceleration test. I have the car in normal driving mode, I have the transmission in sport, and I have the traction control off, but I also have all-wheel drive, so I'm not expecting much loss of traction in the first place, so let's see how it goes. Come to a complete stop, bit of brake torque. Now it's not allowing much brake torque, about 1,800 RPM. Off we go. Interesting. Not bad. 9-speed transmission is shifting nice and quickly. We get some revs from this naturally aspirated V6, 6,900 RPM red line. Yeah, totally reasonable. Totally reasonable. Now off the line, it was a little bit lackluster, but then immediately you just started crawling, then boom, you got a little kickback there. So that was a little weird, but generally, yeah, perfectly reasonable acceleration. Stout, 280 horsepower, naturally aspirated, 9-speed transmission, all good. So as I said when I was showing you around the car, this is actually a pretty big and wide thing, but it is also a Honda, which has a good reputation, and it is a car-based SUV, and that helps as well. All that said, I am also curious how this thing handles. Tested that as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick handling test. I do have the car in normal driving mode, but I also have it with the traction control off, and I have the transmission in sport. So let's see how it goes. Stout V6. yeah, you know, reasonable body control, pretty much what you'd expect. Not a lot of grip from these tires, but that's not a surprise. Decent amount of body roll when you really lay into it, but nothing excessive. We do have not the most precise steering, but we also have a lot of sidewall, more than usual. You know, the Passport now rolls on 20-inch wheels, and the Trailsport is unique with its 18s. So yeah, the steering is a little bit on the low side and a little bit loose. I would appreciate a faster rack and a little bit more precision from the steering. But generally speaking, it's perfectly reasonable behavior, especially for a big and wide SUV like this. I'm curious if the 10 millimeters of extra track on both the front and rear axle help just a little bit with precision. So standard Passports might be a little bit less, but then again, you're rolling on 20-inch wheels and less sidewall on the other Passports, and that would probably more than make up for the difference on the road. Anyway, you know, considering what this SUV is, and especially considering this trim SUV, this trim Passport, I think it's all very reasonable, and good job by Honda. Alas, like most cars out there, especially family haulers like this, you're probably going to be spending a good chunk of time on the interstate. Yes, I tested there as well. Let me show you that. All right, time for the highway test. I am in normal driving mode still, but I do have the transmission just in drive, not in sport. And of course, the traction control is now on. It is right around rush hour, so there will be plenty of traffic, and I am going to use the adaptive cruise control, and the Honda Pilot, thanks to Honda Sensing, does also have lane keep assist, so I'll have that on as well. But more importantly to me at least is seeing how the engine does, how quiet it is, how wind noise is, how road noise is, and those types of things. I should point out that it is a very windy day today in Michigan, so that is not going to help having a completely objective wind noise test, but it is what it is, and we'll do the best we can. So engine noise is nice and subdued. We are going 80 miles an hour and spinning just under 2,000 RPM, so nice and low engine revs. That works really well. Considering the size of this SUV and the width of this SUV, wind noise is pretty good. It's not great. It's certainly not the best I've seen in terms of an SUV, but it's not bad. And considering that it's a super windy day, it's isolated reasonably well. All right, so in terms of the adaptive cruise control, it works reasonably well. It's a little bit on the reactive side. Honda's adaptive cruise control tends to be a little jumpy and a little bit more aggressive than I think it needs to be, but the lane keep assist is working pretty well. So we're staying pretty well centered in the lane, and you saw I had my hands kind of on off the wheel, and it followed the curve pretty well. It doesn't like it if your hands are off the steering wheel for more than just a few seconds. It'll start flashing at you and saying, steering required, steering required. But generally the system functions as it should. Yeah, you can feel it tugging on the wheel, trying to keep it centered in the lane. And if you get close to one side of the lane or the other, you'll get another little warning that says, hey, you're too close here, or hey, you're too close here. So Toyota has a system that they call lane tracing, and that tends to do a better job than this in terms of keeping you in the center of the lane. But in terms of functionally keeping you in the lane and following curves and those types of things, it works well. And generally speaking, this is a perfectly comfortable highway cruiser. I've got plenty of comfort, plenty of width for my shoulders and those types of things, and I could soak up a lot of miles in this, no trouble. Good cruiser. So I just called the Honda Passport a people hauler. Well, it's actually a pretty darn good stuff hauler as well. You saw the massive amount of space we have behind the second row, and then it's just gargantuan behind the first row. It's a very wide vehicle, so that gives you a lot of choice there. Also, This vehicle, just like a Honda Ridgeline, can tow up to 5,000 pounds. Now that's when it's properly equipped with the right trailer hitch and all that, and you do need to have the all-wheel drive model to be able to tow 5,000. The front-wheel drive Passport EXLs can tow 3,500 pounds, but especially the 5,000 pound limit is a healthy amount when you get into recreational toys for a family. You know, that's a decent sized boat, that's a couple of jet skis, a couple of snowmobiles, a few motocross bikes, that kind of stuff, you know, decent camper, those things. Plus, there's a little bit of insurance with the simplicity and displacement of this engine. Naturally aspirated, 3.5 liter V6, nice, simple, straightforward, less to worry about overheating. Always good. And of course, safety. Honda Sensing is what it's called. All 2022 models get Honda Sensing of some sort, and this is no exception. It has a nice long list of standard stuff. I've got it on the screen right now, so you can see that and see what's offered on this car. Usual battery of systems these days. But with the name Trailsport and the drive modes that you have, obviously we need to talk about off-roading at least a little. So this has 8.1 inches of ground clearance, you know, nothing special about that, but decent, and 21.4 degrees of approach angle and 27.6 degrees of departure angle. Again, those are not massive impressive numbers. This is not a serious off-roader to really tackle the craziest trails, but it's decent. It can get you places off-road. You can do a bit of overlanding in this thing and get away with it. It's the kind of thing where if you want to get to a more remote campsite, or you want to get to a better vista for a sunset, or you want to go just a little bit deeper than you've been before to show your kids something, you know, those kind of things, this will be perfectly capable and you'll stay comfortable going those places in this car. And, you know, for the people that are into that more like rugged look, this does have that. It does look just a touch more rugged. Again, we're not talking about major things here. We're still on standard all-season tires, and we have, like I said, nothing crazy when it comes to approach and departure angles. Honda didn't provide a breakover angle. I imagine it's relatively the same, you know, fairly mild, but maybe a little bit better than some of the other car-based SUVs out there. And while all of that is all well and good, that's not what stands out for me for this Honda Passport. What stands out for me is just how much space it provides. And what the Passport does is provide 2 rows of space with a lot of width, so you have good elbow room for the passengers in those 2 rows, and then just massive amounts of space for stuff for all the passengers occupying those 2 rows. And then you've got the grunt and the strength to tow things you want to tow. So you have space, you have grunt, and you have decent fuel economy to get to these places without burning through too much money. And you have good levels of equipment here. Having a wireless smartphone charger is always a nice plus. Heated seats are always nice. It's a good display audio system that works well. You've got plenty of cup holders and charge ports and all those types of things. This is the type of vehicle that will keep everyone that's inside it occupied and comfortable and happy, even if it's on longer trips. And what I'm getting at is basically this would be a very useful vehicle for someone with a young family, especially someone with a young family and a couple of toys. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Those things really do help me out a lot. Okay, goodbye. Turbo free. There we go.